So I started out as an Army aviator. I went to West Point, the United States Military Academy at West Point, and was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army, and I served as an aviator, a pilot, flew little Scott aircraft and Apache aircraft, and had operational and leadership roles, and then went a much more technical route. I studied aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech, and then went to Navy Test Pilot School and became an experimental test pilot. And a test pilot is the person who connects the engineers who don't understand the operators and the operators who don't understand the engineers. And so worked on that job for a couple of years as the developmental test director for the Comanche helicopter program. And then I was invited to work at NASA. I was selected as an astronaut in 2000, and then went to space twice. Once as part of STS-127 on Space Shuttle Endeavour, and I stayed on board as part of Expedition 20 for 2 months, and came home on STS-128. I flew again in 2016 as part of Expedition 46, and then commander of Expedition 47.
As a kid, I was watching the space shuttle, and it was making me dream. Do you remember the first time you saw it and you knew you were going in it?
Oh, the very first time I saw something that had to do with space was when I was 6 years old, and we were landing men on the moon. And my brother was the space enthusiast in our family. He was 6 years older, and he had models of the Gemini modules, the Saturn V, the Apollo lunar lander, all on his desk. And so I would stay up late at night for some of the Apollo landings with my big brother, and was just fascinated with this. And I think at the time, every little boy, and maybe every little girl, wanted to be an astronaut. And that dream sort of faded until I was at West Point, and 3 former West Point graduates and Apollo astronauts came and spoke to the Corps of Cadets. And as an 18-year-old, seeing these men who had done something that I thought I would love to do really inspired me to work hard, and was very fortunate to be selected as an astronaut in 2000.
Would you say that now space interests people once again, because there is a lot of projects which are created from a lot of different countries? It must be exciting for you to see all of
it. It is. It definitely feels like a resurgence in excitement, and I think it's for a lot of reasons. One, there's been a lot of development on the commercial side, and there's been greater access to space, at least for the hardware going to space station, and now right on the verge of private companies be able to take people to space. All these things have really come together, along with just social media and popular media when it comes to space. So I think it's an especially exciting time for not just space, but human space flight.
Yes. I was watching one of your interview with a NASA journalist, and you were explaining all the work you were doing, and you said that you were using material from different countries, and I was wondering, that's what we should do, work together. No, I think it's okay.
We should definitely work together. In fact, International Space Station, I think, is the perfect example for how we should do space in the future. I was on Expedition 20. It was the first time we had all of our international partners represented. Japan, Russia, United States, Europe, and Canada. And we're much better as a consequence of taking the best, both of the people and also the hardware and technology from each one of those countries and their industries. So it's a great model going forward.
I think you've done 2 spacewalks.
I've done 3.
3?
Yeah.
So tell me how it feels.
How is it?
Are you scared? Are you, at the beginning, the very first time,
yeah.
I guess?
I don't think scared is the right emotion. I think you're definitely anxious because, one, it's a very foreign environment, but then secondly, you want to make sure you do a good job.
Yes.
Because everybody is watching you, and you feel the need to make sure that you perform as you've been trained and not let people down to meet up to their expectations. But when you open that hatch for the first time and you look down at the planets going past you at 5 miles a second, I mean, it's a little bit eye-watering, but you spring-load back to the training that you have. What's your next step? It's to connect your safety tether and then go outside with your tools and then get to work.
Is there room for dream, if you see what I mean? Because when I talk to astronauts, they say it's a lot of work, but is it a kind of a child dream too, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you have to take yourself back to that first time as a child when you're really inspired and remind yourself that even though you're doing something that feels a lot like a job and is very hard work, it still ties back to that time that you're inspired. I remember when I first got to space on STS-127, it was after about 4.5 years of training, and it was a time frame after Columbia. We had delays on our flight, a lot of time for travel, learning how to train people for these long duration missions, and I was pretty tired. I remember telling my wife that those first 4 days in space had made the last 4 years worth it.
What would you say? It's more important to make a base on the moon or going to Mars now?
You know, I'm a big proponent of us going to the moon. As a military person, we're always trained that the way that you progress is you crawl, walk, and run. Low Earth orbit is definitely the crawl stage of human exploration in space. And to go to Mars, in my opinion, we're just not quite there yet. Life support systems, the ability to maintain equipment, the speed at which it would take to get to Mars, these are all major steps we have to get past. But to learn how to live on another celestial body is a very, very important step in my mind before we go to Mars.
I've got a question. I'm sure you're going, I'm silly, but I was thinking of the show Space 1999. I don't know if you know it.
No, I don't know that.
No, there is a moon base, and when you watch it, it was made in the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's what people are talking about now.
Yeah.
So is there some room, one more time, for dream or things like that? Dream makes concept true, finally, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to aspire to do something, be inspired to do something. That's the very first step. And I'm really happy that we're taking that next step to make it physical, to make it real. And just as Administrator Bridenstine said a few moments ago, we're going to be there to stay. And I think that's a great step.